So what's trending in regulatory enforcement? We've seen some big changes and more is on the horizon. I'm joined today by Norm Champ to give some clarity on this. Norm, welcome.
Thank you.
So what's really percolating? What's next in terms of regulatory enforcement?
So the biggest trend I think people in the advisory community are worried about now is a series of actions that the SEC has brought against chief compliance officers of investment advisors for misconduct that perhaps 10 years ago people would have thought of as someone else's responsibility, the business's responsibility, but unfortunately the SEC has really been targeting chief compliance officers and bringing actions against them, and I think that's probably the single biggest issue on the minds of people in the business right now.
So what do you think about third-party examination of financial advisors?
So I am very much against the idea of third-party private examinations of investment advisors. Chair Mary Jo White is very much in favor of it, so we have respectfully agreed to disagree. I think that if you look at the pattern of the US government outsourcing so-called gatekeeper functions like credit rating agencies rating debt, or proxy advisory firms recommending proxy votes to investment advisors, both of those examples have not ended well. Credit rating agencies obviously in the crisis, and then proxy advisory firms where they are developing agendas for proxy votes that investment advisors don't always agree with. I'm very concerned that outsourcing exam power to private parties would have similar negative consequences.
So if this doesn't work, what's some alternative that may work?
So I've gone on record publicly recently saying that the SEC should address two issues. One is examiner productivity, and the other one is the reassignment of resources. So on examiner productivity, investment management examiners are managing only slightly above 2 exams per person per year. I think that number should be improved so they can get to more firms. And then secondly, they are having an issue with 200 examiners still examining broker-dealers at the time when FINRA is getting to 40% of the broker-dealers every year, which is basically getting to all broker-dealers every 2.5 years. I would like to see the SEC reassign the broker-dealer examiners to start helping out with investment advisor exams. That could dramatically increase the SEC's exam coverage.
Now, another issue that's top of mind for advisors is the fiduciary rule. What do you think are the odds the SEC is going to put forth a fiduciary rule in 2016?
Chair Mary Jo White has expressed several times that an SEC fiduciary rule is one of her top priorities. I think she said that in testimony. However, there has been no sign of anything coming out of the Commission this year, and I doubt that there is going to be a proposal next year, but you never know.
So would a DOL fiduciary rule conflict with an SEC rule, you think?
So I do think that the Department of Labor rule is not a great idea, and I'm afraid it will come out in 2016. So the fact that President Obama announced the DOL fiduciary rule with Senator Warren at the White House before it was even published tells you the importance the administration attaches to it, and I believe they're going to try to get it done before the November elections. I do think that is a mistake. You are looking at imposing a rule on retirement accounts, and I think the firms that provide the services in those retirement accounts are broker-dealers and investment advisors. It's going to be very difficult to have a regime where they have a fiduciary rule from DOL and they have a different fiduciary standard at the SEC, from the SEC rulemaking.
So putting Chairman White aside, putting the SEC Commission, the Commission itself aside, what about the staff? What do they think about this fiduciary rule? Is it necessary?
So I think if you step back for a moment, the investment advisory fiduciary duty gets a lot of good publicity, and it is a great thing that those advisors are required to put investors' interests first. The only issue is that standard comes from a 1968 Supreme Court case and has never been written down. One of the things I think that might be positive from an SEC fiduciary rule would be writing down the investment advisor standard, then translating that standard to the broker-dealer world, although allowing for the different business model in the broker-dealer world. So I do think there could be some clarity by writing down the rule, but as I said, it doesn't seem clear that there is the will right now at the SEC, but 2016 will tell.
Norm, thanks so much for joining us. I learned some great stuff today.
Great, thanks for having me.
Thanks. For Investment News, I'm Matt Ackerman.
Lo mejor que suena